Thank you for joining me in this overview of the chapter titled Perspectives, Strategies, and Propositions for Cultivating Inclusive Educational Environments, Teaching for Neurodiversity and Creative Learning. This is the 7th chapter in the book titled Handbook of Research on Challenging Deficit Thinking for Exceptional Education Improvement, edited by Richard D. Williams. My name is Anani Vasquez, and I am the author of this chapter. I can be reached at anani.vasquez@asu.edu. And my website address is ananimvasquez.com. This chapter was written for pre-K through 12th grade educators, teacher educators, and educational researchers who are interested in challenging deficit thinking by cultivating inclusive educational environments that are founded on the neurodiversity paradigm and a creative learning perspective. The 3 goals of this chapter were to activate a rethinking of educational system deep structures, to invite readers to participate in interactive propositional tasks for thinking about inclusive education, and to propose perspectives and strategies for cultivating inclusive educational environments. The chapter begins with the belief that critical reflection is necessary for purposeful action when it comes to challenging deficit thinking in education. 3 important concepts or practices that need to be reflected upon are inclusive education, neurotypicality, and neurodiversity. What do these terms mean? How are they practiced? How does deficit thinking play a role in each? Next, I consider the neurodiversity paradigm and how it might shift our educational perspectives. Neurodiversity is the paradigm of natural variation in human cognition, which includes variations in modes of thinking, learning, communicating, and interacting. All variations are valuable for society. What might happen if we shift from thinking about students as beings with fixed attributes and labels to becomings? Becomings meaning that students are intersectional. They're ever-changing as they have more experiences and ever-changing as they move through different contexts. And they are relationally linked to other humans and non-humans in their environments. How might neurodiversity shift our understanding of what it means to know and to learn? Instead of knowledge as being something predetermined that needs to be found and remembered, knowledge can also be seen as always in formation. Students create knowledge through creative learning or by making sense of their social and material experiences. Maybe then formal lessons and informal learning opportunities can be considered emergent learning events in which creative learning occurs differently for each student. This chapter includes various examples of these ideas in narrative and visual forms. After considering theoretical and conceptual bases for challenging deficit thinking, I propose strategies for making practical change. The first is that through critical reflection, educators at all levels can begin to recognize neurotypical and ableist deep structures, those procedures, routines, policies that were designed for able body minds and which marginalize students who diverge from the expected norm. The second is to use creative learning strategies, not only in pre-K-12 settings, but also in professional learning or creative professional learning. Thinking of learning as creative within an event that is occurring in a specific time and place takes away the focus on the student being right or wrong or able or unable. It shifts the focus to the event and the environment. We can then ask ourselves, how do we respond during the learning event? And how do we cultivate learning environments for creative learning to occur for all students? Following the discussion on strategies, I invite readers to engage with propositions, which are creative professional learning tasks. At this point in the chapter, I've chosen to move further into neurodivergent modes of expression. While the first part of the chapter included sections with narrative, this part of the chapter increases the use of modes that are usually not considered academic, such as poetry, icons, web links to videos, imagined dialogue, and text boxes with standalone scholarly citations or quotes. I feel that it is important for all educators to experience diverse modes of expression and knowledge information as it diverges from what we typically experience in schools and universities. This difference can be unsettling or uncomfortable. As we become more comfortable with the unfamiliar, the more open we may become to our students' variations in modes of thinking, learning, communicating, and interacting. The proposition section of the chapter introduces the concepts of micromoments and actionable uncertainty, and the practice of guided improvisation. Micromoments can be described as unplanned, unexpected moments perceived as ruptures from the routine in which creative potential emerges. For example, a micromoment occurs when a teacher asks a question and a student gives an unexpected answer. In the chapter, I invite readers to engage with propositions. On the screen, you see the fourth proposition that is presented in the chapter. When Googling funny kid test answers, I came across a classroom task where the teacher told the students to name 6 animals that live only in the Arctic. One student answered, 2 polar bears, 4 seals. Sit with this unexpected answer for a few seconds. To move away from the neurotypical idea that thinking is abstract and happens only in our minds, the propositions invite readers to engage in different modes of knowing, thinking, learning. So after considering the funny test answer, I asked the readers, and now I ask you, my audience, to remember a time when a student responded in a way that caught you off guard. What was the context? What was your response? Pretend that the student was a helium-filled balloon. Demonstrate how the balloon changed during this interaction. Feel free to stop the video for a couple of minutes during this invitation. So the task states demonstrate. Demonstrate leaves the task open to a variety of modes of expression. So how do you demonstrate the student as a helium-filled balloon during this micromoment? You might use your body to act out how the balloon might change. You might draw the balloon or make a video of the balloon to demonstrate the student as the balloon. How might the balloon change with different teacher or adult or peer responses in that micromoment, or with different changes to the environment? Each proposition is purposefully left open-ended so that the reader can revisit the tasks and think, do through them as they continue their becoming journey. The second section of propositions asks the reader to think, do actionable uncertainty. According to Beghetto, actionable uncertainty is a moderately intense form of uncertainty that has been defined as a state of doubt that rises to a level of awareness whereby we find ourselves at an impasse and feel the need to explore and enact new possibilities. There is always a level of uncertainty in a classroom. A classroom is a diverse setting, and even the best planned lessons will have unplanned for variations. Educators deal with uncertainty all the time. But in these propositions, I invite the readers to consider how they deal with uncertainty in learning environments and how their responses might change how inclusive the environment is or becomes. Proposition 6 from the chapter states, attune to the micro moments as they happen in your classroom or other educational context. How uncertain are you when the unexpected arises? How do you deal with uncertainty? How do you move forward in action to resolve the uncertainty? Does it lead to creative learning? Remember, creative learning happens in the emergent learning event as humans and non-humans experience something together. Instead of reflecting through journaling or through speaking, telling someone, I invite the readers to explore using a different mode of expression. The task states, create a musical playlist for your process with uncertainty. Feel free to pause this video and do this proposition, or spend some time in your learning environment, then come back to this proposition later. The final set of propositions revolve around the practice of guided improvisation. Guided improvisation is an approach to teaching that utilizes techniques for designing emergent learning events that are open-ended enough that students, according to Sawyer, have the freedom to improvise their own path through the material. As educators, we always are balancing structure with flexibility or improvisation. How much or how many rules, routines, directions are needed, and how much flexibility should students have to explore, experiment, or express themselves? So Proposition 7 from the chapter invites the readers to think of teaching as a dance. It states, view a highly choreographed dance, then an improvisational dance. How are classroom interactions like dance? What moves the emergent learning events in your classroom or educational environment? In the chapter, you will also find web links to some examples of highly choreographed and more improvisational dance videos. Now, imagine a lesson as a co-choreographed dance between you, your students, and the objects in your environment. Feel free to pause the video here to imagine teaching learning interactions as a dance. The chapter ends with some considerations for the future. I ask, what if we used effective professional learning strategies, but also added in lesson planning for guided improvisation and co-learning with individuals from various marginalized groups, including various disability groups? And what if professional learning for inclusive education challenged deficit thinking by beginning with critical reflection on school and district deep structures, as well as critical self-reflection on beliefs and attitudes around difference? What if we focused more on flexibility in teacher learning and student learning so that there was more room for creative learning that leads to increased inclusivity? Challenging deficit thinking is a complex endeavor. I'm honored to have my chapter included in the Handbook of Research on Challenging Deficit Thinking for Exceptional Education Improvement, where I and many other scholars have been able to share our research, perspectives, and practices. In this chapter, I did not present evidence-based interventions or solutions, but multiple questions and possibilities as I invite readers to do with me towards cultivating inclusive educational environments. I would like to end with this quote from Rosquist and colleagues. We are all living in predominantly cognitive normative ideologies, centering the experiences and perspectives of the neurotypical and marginalizing the experiences and perspectives of the neurodivergent. But we can start unlearning the cognitive normative gaze as a way of cognitive decolonialism. I hope that this chapter presents readers with multiple opportunities for unlearning the cognitive normative gaze by exploring concepts and practices through neurodiverse modes of thinking, learning, communicating, and interacting. Here you find the list of scholars referenced in this video. Thank you for your time and interest. See the complete chapter to dig in a little bit deeper and to access the rest of the propositional tasks. The chapter, Perspectives, Strategies, and Propositions for Cultivating Inclusive Educational Environments, Teaching for Neurodiversity and Creative Learning, can be found in R.D. Williams' Handbook of Research on Challenging Deficit Thinking for Exceptional Education Improvement, pages 144 through 148, published by IGI Global. Again, thank you.